Bhumibol finally returned to Thailand briefly in March 1950 for his brother's cremation, his formal coronation, and his marriage to Sirikat Kittiakura. He left on June 6, a few days before the anniversary of his brother's death. In late 1951, he at last came back to Thailand to take up his duties as king. Bhumibol knew that Bhutpatamasrin, Chitsingasani and Chayu Pathamrose had nothing to do with his brother's murder. Yet he did nothing to save them. The three men were executed in February 1955 for a crime they did not commit. Bhumibol has changed his story about how Ananda died multiple times. In the days immediately after his brother's death, he vehemently insisted that it was an accident. But in his testimony at the regicide trial, he abandoned this story, and shared several damaging anecdotes about Chayu. By the 1970s, the palace had quietly dropped the claim that Bhutan Chayu, and Priti, were implicated. In an interview for the BBC documentary Soul of a Nation, broadcasting 1980, Bhumibol gave a curiously evasive answer, describing the killing as a mysterious murder that was covered up by unknown powerful figures in Thailand and abroad. You can listen from his own mouth. Check this extraction of video.
When David Lomax asked him about his brother's death, he found the question most distressing.
After so many years now, how do you believe that your brother died?
The investigation provided the fact that he died with a bullet wound in his forehead. And this thing is, it was proved that it was not an accident or not a suicide. One doesn't know. But what happened is very mysterious, because immediately many of the evidence was just shifted, and then because it was political, so everyone was political, even the police were political. So it is a fact of that is not very clear. I only know what happened.
When you yourself were there and you ran along when everyone called?
When I arrived, he was dead. Many people wanted to advance not theories but facts to clear up the affair. They were suppressed, and they were suppressed by influential people in this country or in the international politics.
During the 1990s, Bhumibol cooperated with Canadian author William Stevenson in a semi-official biography that put forward yet another story about how Ananda died. This time, the alleged scapegoat was notorious Japanese military officer Masabu Tsuji, who was said to have sneaked into the palace disguised as a monk. The tale was ridiculous, and there is incontrovertible evidence that Tsuji was nowhere near Bangkok when Ananda was killed. Personally, it seems to me that the king killed his brother accidentally and then did not know how to act, and the consequences were suffered by people who worked for the royal family. We must take into account the year that was. Decisions and people involved could sell information, for good or bad, could use arguments to destabilize a whole country, and the simplest solution was to eliminate all witnesses. Perhaps to some extent that was the reason why in the 50s and 60s and 70s his kindness increased, to try to fill that gap left that day where he killed his brother by accident. The information on this subject is very complex. There are many memorandums as much as British and American in which it is implied that in fact the king killed his brother by accident. Another important aspect is that a majority of Thais do not like to inquire into these issues of monarchy, since it is punishable by law in that country. I personally think that it is fundamental to have a mentality in which we question and investigate what has happened, and in this case in its moment was decisive for a country. Imagine what would have been the world of having exercised his reign in Nanda. Perhaps Thailand was worse, or maybe it was better, we will never know. And we will never know why they killed him. There are certain books banned in Thailand which if you speak of them within Thailand or if you encourage the population to read them they can put you in jail. Curiously they are books where the public is encouraged to think from the two points of view. A phrase with much truth in this life is, knowledge is power, and this kind of knowledge does not like the Thai government because they are fundamental issues in the formation of their culture. And perhaps many Thais feel offended for these issues, and should not be blamed, as the vast majority of Thais have grown up in localities where they are constantly being bombarded day by day with propaganda from the king, which obviously leads to a person exposed to such propaganda to try to defend it against any anomaly that is presented to him. But also there are the Thais who realize the situation, but that type of people remain silent, for the simple reason of exposing themselves to the jail if they doubt of its government. Part 2. Thailand, nowadays. I will try to say in an easier way, while less educated this population will be easier to manipulate, and this applies to any population. Anywhere on the planet Earth there are people with good intentions and people with bad intentions, of that we did not save any human being. But in Thailand there is tremendous social control on these issues. For example, if you go to the cinema in Thailand, immediately before the film starts, you will be displayed the propaganda of the king, a kind of reminder on the part of the government to the public, inducing to the suggestion saying do not forget that you love the king in spite of his reality, do not forget that you love the king, despite what they say or show you. It is regrettable that it is an obligation by law in Thailand to show such propaganda at that level. But it is an example of suggestion feedback to imminently accept that what Thai people always hear is true. There are several books of strategy and manipulation to the population where we can see how the king applied to his life successfully, as he was a person with advanced education compared to other Thais for that time. I will speak to you a little paragraph from one of many books of that kind. Here is one. You will offer to help all the world and your prestige of generous person will increase, with which you can confuse many people. If you are going to help someone, never do it at once, do it little by little, get the one who receives the help depends on you. Take measures so that in the case that you are the one who calls for help do not fall into this situation to receive it drop by drop. When you help someone, you will do it in such a way that it is known by all. It is necessary to make known the good actions and to silence those that are not so much. But do not be the one who preaches your great kind spirit, it is better to have others proclaim it for you, since this way you still gain more in prestige. People will do their